Good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to always be with you and spend time with you. There is so much to look at and to grow and to awaken to. It's amazing. And so many of you are so great. A lot of you now are working in the healing professions. You're healing up people. I'm so proud of you. A lot of you are working with your animals and bringing them around into a state of wellness. And it's just amazing. Now, you know, I use these tapes as training tapes. So I want to bring in a letter that I received. It's an email YouTube. And I want to talk about it because you're going to have this sort of issues come up at times with different people. Because we are, as you're beginning to see, most of you are in trouble as a human race. Our dietary habits have been gross, to say the least, for a millennium. And so I want to go over this letter because it'll give me an opportunity to talk about a little more about pH factors and also about demineralization of the teeth and things like this. And I think it's important that we understand more about this sort of thing and about cases that you're going to get. Because this channel is for the lay person, no question. This is for everyone out there because you're seeing the suffering levels. And we've been talking a lot about the genetic weaknesses that we're facing here. And so we're up against quite a bit. Matter of fact, each one of you can be up against quite a lot. That's why it's important to get your eyes done and to take a look at what you're up against. Because no one has ever opened the doors like we have into the inner world of the cell and chemistry and what's going on in real time. It's one thing to go in a lab and to make assumptions and theories. It's another thing to see in actual practice what's actually going on here. And I think if we do less lab work and we do actual working with humans in what we've already accomplished, it seems like the humans want to always go back, and that's the mind. This is why I'm always saying get out of the mind, because you have to understand that nature is dualistic. For God to experience something outside of itself, it just can't, because it is total, it is complete, it is all in the all. And I've said this before, in all religions, it doesn't matter what religion you're in, you will find the discussion of God always in the context of the whole, the all, the one. We have sub-gods that you see in Hinduism and things like that. These are basically deities or entities that channel the God force at all these major levels, because there's all kinds of levels and frequencies to God. And so this is oftentimes why you can't see something, because it is a different frequency. It's like animals hear things we can't, different frequencies. So Rife picked up on that in the Rife machine and understood that life is just really different levels of magnetic energy, different levels of electromagnetic energy frequencies. And in those frequencies come colors and chemistry and everything else. But it is always dualistic. So for God to experience something outside of itself, and that's when you feel the most alone. You're the closest to God there is. Because that is the alone state. There's nothing outside of God. God doesn't have a mama God, a daddy God, or a sister or brother God to go run and play with. It doesn't work that way. It is not material. Materiality is just the condition or state of the flux of chemistry between these two poles. And these two poles are set up by God within its own body to play the game of duality, to play the game of differences, the illusion of differences, that you and I are different. And if you're working just in the consciousness of the human consciousness, it appears that all life is separate than yourself. I'm here, you're there, camera's there, that sort of thing. However, that is the grand illusion, because as you begin to pull back to yourself, this duality ceases to exist, and it ceases to exist in the present moment. In the now, there is no duality. There's no past and there's no future. This exists between the flux of energy between two poles of positive and negative. Though that movement of electromagnetic energy, of course, is electric, is magnetism. And in magnetism, opposites attract. And you see that in life. You end up with a relationship and you wonder, why did I end up, we don't have nothing in common. What you find, however, is that relationship has experiences for you to fill your void, to home your weaknesses, to bring you into a whole again. And you're seeing that more and more now. The idea of soulmates and things like that doesn't exist because we're all one anyway. So from the standpoint of a soulmate, we're all soulmates in the sense that we're all from the one source. We're just individualized at certain levels. The closer to God consciousness you get, the more that individualization disappears, but yet it becomes stronger. There's a dichotomy that's hard for people to understand, an oxymoron that's hard to understand, in that in the context of creation, things are individual and separate. In the context of the whole, everything is one. So that's the grand illusion. And it's like the movie, and we said this before, the observed is different than the observer. The movie is different than the viewer. And it is you that is the viewer. And the reason I'm bringing this in, because I want to channel you toward the world of chemistry for a minute. And try to get into some of the things we know, because chemistry is full of theories out there, and we've talked about this before. Some of it, allopathic, follows and doesn't hold any water. It has a dead end to it that doesn't hold any water. And I want to discuss that in the context of this letter that I received. And this is from Jocelyn. This is a YouTuber, I guess. And I wrote to you before. My name is Jocelyn. I live in Hawaii. You may remember me from having flaming hot Cheeto fingers while detoxifying. I'm writing to you today to express my deep, deep concern with your teaching and protocols for people. I followed your videos. I brought your herbs at your book. It was almost a religion to me. After 5 months of being completely raw, taking your herbs and your advice, not only was I exhausted at all hours of the day, but my teeth started to decay and became sensitive and weak to the touch. So I want to stop right there for a minute before I go on here, because I want to talk about demineralization of the teeth. So everyone understands that, because she goes on and blames fruit, and stuff like that, like everybody else does. So let's go back and look at these two poles that life fluctuates between. When we reduce them down to chemistry, we find that one pole is the base side of chemistry, and the other pole is the acid side of chemistry. To understand that a little more is to understand that bases act like females and acids act like men. So the male side of me says, oh, look at this neat phone. This phone is really cool. How did they build that? I'm going to get a screwdriver, I'm going to tear it apart, I'm going to look at this. The female side of me says, quit messing with that, just paint a pretty flower on it. That's the difference. Acids are corrosive. Now, you can get real strong females, and there are some real base alkaline chemistry, and that is too much. Life likes to fluctuate between balances. It likes to balance, and the word balance means homeostasis. That all life seeks a balance. If you went down to the ocean and you poured a bucket of water in the ocean, would you raise the whole ocean, or would you just raise the water where you poured the bucket of water? Of course you would raise the whole ocean. Infinitesimal, you couldn't figure it out, but you raise the whole ocean, because everything seeks a homeostasis in chemistry and magnetics and everything else. That's where you see osmosis, you see all this, the movement and flux of chemistry. Some of this is beyond the limited human mind right now to understand that. But I think some basics are important to understand about this flux of chemistry between these two poles. These two sides of chemistry has been, or how we, I guess, look at these two sides of chemistry is in relationship to hydrogen. And hydrogen is considered the universal element since they found it in virtually everything. So when you see hydrogen, you'll see the different levels of hydrogen determines the acid-base balance of this sort of thing. So to give you an example, carbohydrates are made of oxygen, carbon, and hydrogen. Ingesting this, the hydrogen is then removed and the carbon is then burnt with oxygen for energy, just like your car does. And so the gas has just been refined to carbon. And that's what you have to understand, is that that's the process of chemistry, the changing or the movement of atoms. And of course, atoms are built from a nucleus where you have protons and then you have electrons circling it. So as chemistry fluctuates, trying to achieve a homeostatic balance, these electrons and protons, especially the electrons, enter and leave orbits of other constituents, other elements, forming compounds of all types. And it's extensive, so much so the average person finds chemistry way out there. And I have to say that I know a lot of chemists, and I still see a world of theories and opinions and ideals. And in health, we're at the point where we can't use theories right now. We need actualities. So we call this pH, potential for hydrogen, meaning that determines the pH factor or the acid-base factor of a constituent or of a compound, of a fluid, of whatever. So this fluctuation between these two are always seen and creates what's called an anaerobic cataerobic situation, or an anabolic catabolic situation, or an anionic cationic issue. All these different issues of oxidation and ionization, the fluxing of chemistry, is a constant process buffering between these two poles with magnetics. And it's just all how that works. So understanding that the acid side of chemistry is corrosive and it is not the dominant chemistry on the planet. This is a base chemistry planet, meaning a female planet in chemistry. And if you take a look at this, step back and look at this, men who run things, this is a warring planet. And so hopefully you'll see more females starting to run, but females that have not become male. Females that retain their beauty and their individuality and their love and their compassion and their honesty and integrity. Because the acid side is just corrosive. It's clumsy. It breaks things down. So important to understand that chemistry fluctuates through these two poles, and this pH is registered on a scale of 1 to 14. 7 is that homeostatic balance. In blood is 7.4, just over that hill toward the base side of chemistry. And the dominance of that is essential. So when you see the neutralization, or you see the little base or even the little acid side, you see most of the body fluctuating with, I would say, between the maybe the 6s and the 7s and the 8 pHs, 8 at the very most, I think, that you see this. You'll see that cellular acids from cell metabolism and respiration are around 3 pH, very hot. We've talked about this before. That's soda pop hot. You have hydrochloric acid, which is a hot element in the body. That's around 2 pH, very hot, 10 times hotter than the acids that you feel when you feel stiff or tight or you feel pain. That's around 3 pH. So as you see, as you get from 7 above, there is no breakdown. There is rebuilding. There's regeneration. These are considered the electrolytes, those constituents that conduct electricity. And so in looking at this, you understand that as you eat, your body breaks down this complex chemistry, breaks it apart to its simplest components, because you can't absorb complex components. Your body won't do that. So that's why there's digestion, to break down the complex chemistry of a food into simple compounds, like complex sugars or poly or disaccharides into monosaccharides. Proteins through the polypeptide stages down to the amino acid stages before your body can use them. And the same thing with fat to fatty acids. This is why you have bile, and this is why you have digestive enzymes and hydrochloric acid and pepsin, and this is why all this stuff exists. And what people don't understand is that when we introduce heat to a food, we break these magnetic bonds that God set for all this chemistry to work properly. and most animals just eat without thinking, we tear this apart. We destroy that food by cooking it. Because cooking destroys. Look, when you heat something, how you change the molecular structure. And if you're one of those people that think we can cook food, it makes it better than what God did, I think you're delusional. Because it is a proven fact that raw is energetically way above cooked. Matter of fact, magnetically, I have that in my book to show you that when you cook, say, broccoli, you're lucky to keep it at around 1,200 angstroms or 1,200 units of magnetic energy, as opposed to the counterpart raw, which is about 9,000. Energy is everything because, again, we're looking at this fluctuation of magnetic energy. We could say spiritually, we're looking at states of consciousness. And as we begin to grow in our consciousness, you begin to say the changing of this flux of energy. So there's so much to this because we come as multifaceted beings. We have an emotional body hooked to us. We have a mental body hooked to us. We have a physical body hooked to us. We have these bodies hooked to us that we have to work through. And each body limits our awareness of who we are really. And then we start isolating who we think we are. We get a name attached to us. We get an ego attached to us. So suddenly we become something other than who we are, and we start identifying with that other instead of who we really are. We identify with the movie instead of the watcher of the movie. And so health is kind of going back to the watcher of the movie. Because I'll give a good example of that. Look at tomatoes. Tomatoes are pretty acidic, but you can eat them raw fairly good. Cook them though, and they're so acidic it takes the aluminum right out of the pan. So you have to understand that when you cook, the ash, the byproducts of what you cook is what you look at in pH factors. So when you look at the ash of cooked tomatoes, holy crap, very, very acidic to the counterpart raw. And cooking creates a more of acidic ash. Well, let's assume that you can digest your foods properly. Let's assume that you can absorb your nutrition properly. Well, now your nutrition is in the blood. And it is important for you to know how the body utilizes nutrition. And that utilization of nutrition predominantly falls on the adrenal glands. And we've talked about that, mineralocorticosteroids. But that's just the mineral side. There's all kinds of goodies in foods, from astringents to flavonoids to coumarins to tannins to alkaloids, just a whole host of different factors that have different actions, each at variances of pHs to create certain responses. That's simple, because at each pH you have a different response mechanism. You have a different ionization happening. And depends on the constituents. So let's assume that you absorb this ash. And if you look at the typical diet of man through millenniums, you've seen high proteins and you've seen cooked dead foods, particularly northern environments. A lot of people like her write me letters and don't understand the issue that man is a tropical species. Go back now, we can go back 44 million years ago and show that a human upright bipedal walking female was a tropical species. And National Geographic has admitted the Homo sapien is originally a tropical species. Sure, we migrated. Sure, we've adapted. If you take a look at man's health right now, it'll show you how well we've adapted to meat eating and cooked foods. Cancer is out of 5 people, 4 have it right now. Look at the amount of babies dying, and look at the amount of kidney failure. Look at the amount of this. You can't look at anything but your diet. You can look at your stressors. You can look at the toxic chemistry from pollution. Absolutely, you can look at those factors. Absolutely. What you eat, what you drink, what you breathe, and what you put on your skin. But when you bring this ash into the blood, remember the blood is 7.4. It is on the base side of chemistry. When you bring this digestive ash absorbed into the blood, then you're going to see the fluctuation of pHs. The blood must maintain this narrow margin of pHs. So let's assume you're eating a piece of animal meat. Whether it's raw or cooked, doesn't matter. The ash is predominantly phosphorus, nitrogen. This ash is predominantly acidic. And this is true with most grains, this is true with most beans, things like this. Nuts, the ash is acidic. Well, the problem with this is the blood is on the base side. So when you bring this acid ash into the blood, what does the blood have to do to maintain its alkalinity? Because if not, death is the end result of that. ERs looks very closely at the pHs, and the pH of blood is essential to know of that patient. And so as you see the short variances of changes of blood, you see blood clots forming, you see sticking of the blood cells together. If you look at most blood samples, you have red blood cells stuck together, clustering or following each other like choo-choo trains. And it's that variances of pH which create either an anionic or a cationic environment. So it's important to understand that when you bring in this acid ash, that balance, that movement of homeostasis has to exist. It's the law of physics. It's how the universe is ran. And so this law of homeostasis has a need to pull in base chemistry to balance out acid chemistry, because acids neutralize base and base neutralizes acids. Where we find this at the greatest insult is the use of chemotherapy, where the body has become predominantly acidic and they add hotter acids to the mix. What you see is pure destruction of the cells. And this is allowed on this planet. This is how barbaric the FDA is. This is how barbaric oncology is. And they're going to pay. You can't keep going this route. It's an offense to chemistry. It's an offense to man's knowledge. It's an offense to all of this. You don't bring in acids, more acids, into a highly acidic medium without creating more problems, because you're bringing corrosive chemistry in on top of corrosive chemistry. There is no homeostasis available. And because that's happening, the need for electrolytes is high. And so what you see is dehydration, because all this acidic ash has, through the generations, damaged the colon. There's been study after study linking high-protein diets to colon cancer. Can't deny that one. And then what they're not looking at, and what soon is on the horizon, thanks to every one of you guys and to some great medical doctors out there are getting involved with this, you're going to see the role of the kidneys and the failure of the kidneys and what we're up against, same proteins. And you just see it when you go on high-protein diets. Just observe people on a high-protein diet. Look at the Atkins effect. Death, open hearts, strokes. So kidney failure. One lady lost her bladder. Her bladder started breaking apart on a 5-year run on Atkins. Can't do it. And yet this was medical thinking. Because they don't see acidosis as we do, they see alkalosis. Got to get over that theory. Wrong, bad theory. So as you bring this acid ash in, the need of the blood to maintain its alkalinity is obvious. So the need for the blood to seek the base chemistry is obvious. Initially, to keep the sodium balance, to keep all the electrolyte, the chloride balances, and all the balances, the body has got to find a base chemistry that it can borrow. And that base chemistry is calcium. It sucks it right out of the wall of the vascular system, connective tissue. After a while, you see herniations, spider veins, varicose veins, petechia, bruising easy, aneurysms, herniations, because connective tissue holds everything together, hemorrhoids. Everything, connective tissue. And you see the skeletal tissue. You see the teeth. You see the demineralization of the human body. It is not totally demineralization. It is the robbing of base chemistry to fight acid chemistry. It's that simple. As that's chemistry. That's physics. That's how life works. Between these two poles of positive and negative. Some religions think the negative is the devil and the positive is God. That's not true. These are opposite sides of the same coin. God is encompassing all. You can't be outside of the body of God, because God is all. There's nothing outside of the all. Can't be. So you have to look at that differently. Omnipresence, omniscience, omnipotent means all, total. Nothing can be outside of that. It all exists within the body of God. And you see on this level the fluctuation of chemistry and electromagnetic energy in the activity and the flux of life. The demand of movement, the demand of thought, the demand of emotions, the demand of the production of hormones and steroids, the production of everything creates the demand of energetics. And this energetics is a constant magnetic fluctuation of magnetic energy and then the bonding of chemistry in a harmonious way to accomplish homeostasis. When you look at the food on the planet that's the most homeostatic, it's fruits and vegetables. Grown properly, now keep in mind, grown properly, picked ripe. Then you have that homeostasis. So what's happening in the fruit kingdom is that we're not picking our fruit ripe. And I try to warn some of you guys, like pineapple. There's only one food that ripens nutritively after you pick it unripe and green. What is that one? That's right, it is the banana. If you're eating pineapple, you could create an acid environment in your teeth and have some demineralization through that, only in the sense that your body's seeking to balance that or get that homeostasis of chemistry, which is in the predominance of base. And this is especially true in the mouth. The stomach almost sees the reverse. Even though the stomach deals with acids, it can't get too acidic or you have ulceration. So this balance is important, and fruits and vegetables come with that 70-80% base to 20 to 30% acid chemistry. You see differences depending upon the foods. But through the years of growing fruits and vegetables and all this stuff, we've ruined our soils, we pick unripe. All these factors come into play here. We use these high nitrogen acid fertilizers to enhance the growth of trees, which then helps to acidify the food even more. So you have to take all these things in consideration when you're talking about fruits and berries and melons and vegetables and these sort of things. Meat is what nutrition created. It isn't nutrition. Meat is rotten, is putrefaction. It is dying cells. And if you think that's healthy, have at it. But it makes you stink. It makes you acidic. It is the worst food on the planet to eat for humans, for Homo sapiens, which are frugivores, for herbivores, horses and cows. Look at what happened when we started feeding cows meat. Hoof and mouth, mad cow came on board. Didn't come on board till then. That's because we're adding acid and putrefactive, I might add, into the body. Just the design. So she brought up some things here and she's just not thinking. And all this is based upon, who is this? Oh, Weston Price. Give me a break. You know, these are people that have no clue how to get people well. They're just thinkers. And that's the problem, is that you have to go deep within the physiology and the anatomy of the human to realize that we are not meat eaters. We've been eating it, and we can eat it, you know, okay. But we're not omnivores. Anthropology has considered the human as an omnivore, but he's a frugivore. And you're seeing National Geographic and others getting on board with this more and more and more. We can argue quality all day long, and I would be on your side. I'd be on your side when you say this fruit is more acidic today, especially the acid category. The subacids are the best category I guess one could stay in, unless you can get ripe and organic acid fruits. So understand that when you eat the meats and you eat the grains and you eat the beans, this ash is predominantly acidic ash, dumping itself into the blood. And the need to steal calcium is obvious. The other thing that we do is that we consume dairy products as if we're supposed to drink milk after we're weaned. You don't see that anywhere in nature but man. It doesn't happen. Because after you're supposed to be weaned, milk protein is now not available to the body. Can't break it down anymore. So what you have is acidosis created from these proteins. And it is very mucus forming. mucus, all that mucus you get. Arnold Ehret wrote extensively because when he detoxed people, all he saw was mucus coming out. And he said, you know what? The problem is mucus. And so he created the mucus diet healing system. This mucus builds up in the sinuses, the bronchial trunks. It builds up through you in the bowel wall. This is your lymphatic system. This is a lipid-based constituent fluid that's designed to protect you from acids. And it is cholesterol-based, and we've had discussions on what cholesterol is. So it's important to understand this fluctuation of chemistry is constant. Acid to base, base to acid, it's back and forth. We can call it ionization, oxidation. All these factors come into play in the homeostatic move of chemistry, trying to keep things in a balance to a certain degree. So there is not pain, not swelling, not breakdown. There's activity, there's movement. Acids are doing their job. Estrogen is acidic, essential to the body, testosterone. But you have base chemistry that's more essential. So you have these components that are acids that are essential, no question. However, when the dominance of acids build up in the human body, the need to steal electrolytes is obvious, that homeostatic need. And so what you have is a demineralization of the human body, and it causes acidosis. And we've talked a great deal about why man suffers, and it's acidosis, pain and swelling sets in. And it's because this protein, these higher proteins, not only are demineralizing the human body in that respect, it is also damaging the kidneys. So now we have a situation where we can't filter this gigantic sewer system anymore, the lymphatic system. We can't filter it. We're peeing up to a point. Now, a lot of people are losing the ability to even pee. So then you go on dialysis, and that even makes things so much worse, but essential. So when we lose the ability to filter acids out of the body, not only, and we have the ingestion of acids, and so much acid ash, we have a high acidosis of the human body. We have an extreme dehydration situation existing. The stealing and robbing of calcium out of the body is head to toe. And this is especially true in the teeth. How many people can go under here and go, oh, I feel my lymph nodes? Demineralization of the body is a systemic issue. And if your saliva is acidic, which it should be alkaline, you're going to demineralize your teeth. You're going to have receding gums. And this is inside the tissues, inside the gums and everything else. Most of this is not what you're eating so much as what it's creating as an internal environment of lymph stagnation. And this happens when your lymph system starts backing up all the way into the head. And if you're doing acid fruit on top of that, it can accelerate that. And remember, fruit is the most active factors of all the foods because of high astringents. It starts cleaning the human body. But it's not just astringent, it's full of all the nutrition too. Fruit is one of the most nutritious foods on the planet. So is berries. Raised properly, picked ripe. Greens, fairly nutritious. But look at how much greens a horse has to eat to maintain its weight. Of course, it's a big boy most of the time, but ponies, smaller horses do. So it's important to realize where demineralization is really happening. But it can happen if you have acid saliva in your mouth. Because your saliva, you must maintain base mouth, or you will lose your teeth, your gums, your bone, and everything else. But the bone loss comes internally. And you see that. People have lost their jawbone, their sinus bone here. Sinuses are full of mucus from all the dairy products or proteins and things. And this is what we battle. So this poor soul, she's in trouble beyond eating fruit. She's got high acidosis. And here's the next one for you healers. The next comment she makes is, my hair became brittle and weak and falling out in clumps. Fruits make your hair fall out in clumps. You know, I've talked about this before, that here we have our own China study. We get to see people from around the world. And I've said this before, of the healthiest people I see that are in the older ages, that look the best, are those islanders that were raised on fruit. They are by far the healthiest. When they're coming in here in their upper 90s and their early hundreds, walking in vital. And when you look at the northern people that are in their hundreds, are in nursing homes, It's a big difference. And I can just tell you the difference is there. You have to understand why you take someone from a highly, and this is for all you practitioners. This letter I'm doing for all you practitioners, because you're going to have people like this that are hard to work with because their condition is so advanced and they're trying to work through this, and it's hard. And sometimes they don't get it. Sometimes they don't always listen. She didn't listen to the videos. We talked about acid fruits before. And it's not just that's demineralizing her. She's already in trouble. She's been in trouble. You know what's funny is when you start a program of detoxification, remember, your weaknesses are exposed. Your doors are open. Hey, take a look at what's in there. You sit there and you tend to blame detoxification. That is a big mistake of all you intellectuals and all you medical doctors, because detoxification is your only golden key you have to rebuild your patient, to regenerate the tissue in your patient. Because if you don't get that homeostatic balance, the pH balance, well, how do you do that? Do you take a bunch of supplements? That further unbalances the pH of the body. You have to go back to nature and eat foods that are designed for your body, and foods that are raised properly, picked right, and bring in it'll find its own homeostasis. The body will kick out those heavy metals, it'll kick out the acid chemistry, all the mucus, and it'll bring itself in its own homeostasis. You can't play the homeostatic game in chemistry. And this is what Price and a lot of these other people think you can do. And you can't do it that way. And this concept that you have to have meat, the concept that meat is why our brains are the way they are, that's idiocy. That shows me that the intellectual of these people are not quite, what you think it is. These are concepts, these are ideals, and they have no practical use in clinical work. That's what all of you great healers on YouTube are seeing. You know, detox is a rough way to go, but the only way to go, however you do it. It is the only way to go, because if you don't get these acids, you don't get your kidneys filtering, you don't get your adrenals up, you just are not going to be able to change your internal environment, the terrain as it's been called, the culturing medium. And then we blame bacteria and everything for all the putrefactive meat and everything that people are eating and all the proteins in the body that's building up, and then we blame the food. It's idiocy. Now, hair clumping out. Already, you know that when you have a patient or a client whose teeth are demineralizing and the hair falling out, it's not their detoxification. This is just showing their weaknesses. And remember, we've talked about this. Hair can fall out, nails can fall off. Remember the first case I told you I had where the girl came from New York. She went to a yoga ashram in the Bahamas, fasted and had fruitarian lifestyle and cleansing, and her fingernails fell right off because she jumped right into this high-level program of detoxification from this very low acidic consumption in New York City of hot dogs and sausage buns and things like this. And so her fingernails, we brought her back and balanced her out, and her fingernails grew back majorly wicked. I never seen fingernails like I thought they were false for a minute when she came back in. I'm going, well, God, did you get false put on there? She said, no, these are mine now. I go, whoa, cool. Balance. And I've talked a lot in these videos about the need to be balanced. Some of you guys are so good, you're like me, we tear it up, doesn't matter. And that's okay. But people that get unbalanced emotionally and mentally have problems. And so remember, we have to also look about hormones and steroids and the utilization of factors. You take someone like this that has a lot of lymph problems in the head, that's why they're losing the hair. It's about acids. But this is systemic acids, not acids from your fruit eating. You're highly acidic head to toe, my dear. And this is a problem for you. And yet now you gave up and went right to the acid diet. You went back to the caveman diet. You thought eating meat was a good thing to do. And you're eating raw and organ meats and things like this. If you're going to eat your meat raw, or eat meat, eat it raw, absolutely. You know, David Wolf did a book called Beauty or something like that, and he did some Carillion photography on cooked meat versus live meat or raw meat. And yes, it's alive. It's full of magnetic energy, definitely. But it's one-sided in its chemistry. It's putrefactive. It's cells dying. It's not nutrition. It's dying. It's decay. And if you like decay in your body and you like to stink and you like high acidosis in the body and you like having all these problems, keep eating your meats. But there is one thing about meat eating that you must understand why people like it. It's energetic. People, I'm strong, I eat meat. Is it? What is energetic about eating protein that's putrefactive? Nothing, except one thing. And we've talked about this many times. And for you practitioners, for all of you, it's important to understand that meat is full of neurotransmitters. If we cut your arm off and take your meat, it's full of neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters runs the autonomic nervous system in the animals and in the people. Well, the meat is full of neurotransmitters, and that's what turns us on, especially those with really weak adrenal glands. And you can tell that. I told you I went back to meat eating when I poisoned myself and I could breathe. Thank you. Thanks for the neurotransmitters. I didn't want to inject myself, so I went to a little meat eating for a while because I needed those neurotransmitters, and I breathed better. Yeah, I felt it. I felt the toxicity and everything else, but then I went total raw on top of that and got cleaned that out. But I can tell you that this is a real issue in our society, and these ideas of caveman meeting and we have to have meeting, that's bullcrap. These people are out of line. These are medical doctors or PhDers that have left the world in common sense. And I don't know why the need of everybody to go back. Look forward. Make us a higher species, a healthier species, a more spiritual species. We wallow in the ground, we play in the ground, we act like we play in the ground. Meat is very aggressive and creates violent tendencies. This has been proven in study after study after study. You want to take violent prisoners and make them passive? Take away the meats. Get them on raw foods. Make them vegetarians, and they'll settle right down. And this is the thing. And of course, depending which animal is which meat, you've got your testosterone, you've got your estrogens, you've got all kinds of chemistry in meats. But meat is a byproduct of nutrition, not nutrition itself. And you'll see that the stinkiest animals, the weakest animals, are the meat eaters. So you have to understand that. So her hair got brittle and fell out. She's in trouble. And it's probably warping her sense of reality, because her whole head is full of acidosis. You're going to blame the fruit? Blame your kidneys and adrenals. Look at your genetics, honey. Look at what's going on with you in that way and address those. If you all should get pH papers. Just play with them. Check your urine, check your saliva. Of course, you can't check inside the body, but you can check your saliva. Your saliva should always be base, alkaline. Because if it's not, most people, if you check their saliva, you go around with pHs, they're acidic. This is why they lose their teeth. I can tell you why I lost some of mine. Lymph, acidosis, not the fruit. I lived on fruit for years. I never had any. Matter of fact, I've seen enamel rebuild on a fruitarian diet. Seen it. So these insinuations are ridiculous. And it just shows lack of understanding, lack of knowledge, fear-based, and she doesn't know how to get herself into balance here. Now, she said, I could no longer digest my food properly. Interesting. So now what are we looking at? The potential here, because she's so lymphatic up in the head and losing her hair from acidosis. How do we put on hair? How many people do you see on the YouTube are getting their hair back? Absolutely. But weak things disappear. Let me tell you, the strong survive in creation and the weak are consumed. And this is true at the cellular level. They always have to understand how nature works. And so I've seen that as well. That when you start opening up the body, and the chances are this lady didn't digest squat in the first place. All my bowel movements were abrupt and liquid. If that's the case from eating fruit, then it means that you have serious hepatic and pancreatic problems, dear one. And this really shows this, because no one has a hard time digesting fruit. Only those that have pancreatic problems do. And eating fruit, you know, that's the simplest food to digest. That's what you would want to eat with a pancreatic, a compromised pancreas, or even a liver gallbladder. Because I have nice form stools when I eat fruits and vegetables. Thank you. They should. If they purge you, it shows you how toxic you are. And for all you healers, you got to understand that. When you put your clients on these programs and they start having excessive bowel movements, it isn't the program, it's their body. This is her body doing this to her, not these programs. This is just nutrition. All we give is put you on limited nutrition. We're detoxifying you. We don't do it on water. We give you plenty of nutrition to do it. So it's just interesting how people lose this understanding. And she says, my pancreas couldn't produce the enzymes needed to digest the high amounts of sugar in fruits. That shows her stupidity right there. Sorry, Jocelyn, but that was a stupid statement. That was stupid. And if Price or any of these people feel that way, then sorry, I don't feel they have the right to call themselves anything to deal with health. Because it's not true. These are monosaccharides. If you're going to say that about fruit, you better say it about vegetables, because it's the same simple sugar. So this idea, I'm eating all this sugar and fruits, it's going to do that, that's stupid. That's ridiculous. Because something tastes sweet, it's loaded with sugar. How about bread? Doesn't taste too sweet, does it? 1,000 times higher in sugar than fruit. What's that? So we assume different things that aren't true always. And this is what's happened in biochemistry. This is what happened. We have theories and we have assumptions. Well, that doesn't do most of our health issues right now, and the seriousness of the allopathic kill ratios are a direct result of our theories. Your health of the people looking around is a result of prices and these people's thinking. Going back to the organ meats and the bone broths and the raw pastured organic goat's milk. You eat organic goat's milk and you'll feel your lymph system back. You think your hair's falling out now, sweetheart. You just wait. Now it's going to be tumors popping out on you. But you go ahead and you do that. Go ahead, because it's up to you. But fair warning, dear one, that you're having filtration problems. You're highly acidic. It's obvious by the symptoms. Although this letter gets better, guys. She says, I have been doing this for 1 month, da-da-da-da-da. She claims her teeth are remineralizing, blah, 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 blah. You talk a lot about fruitarianism as your natural diet, but in reality you're giving people false information. No, sweetheart, you are. Price is. We are frugivores. You can't prove any differently. Get on the table in a dissection and start dissecting primates versus humans, cows and horses versus humans, hogs, dogs, chickens, and bears. Those are the omnivores. Dissect them and look at them as opposed to the human anatomy and physiology. It doesn't take much of a brain. Doesn't take much of a brain. Just because man's been doing something one way doesn't mean it's right. Actually, when you see the herd, when you see society, most of the time you can understand if society does something, you can understand it's probably wrong. The bulk of the people are generally wrong. It's always that one or two out there that find truth. And the reason is that creation works better when you're unaware. God works better in creation and is able to have all kinds of fun and an endless amount of individualities if it loses itself. But it also has to find a way to find itself. And that's what's going on here. You guys are finding yourselves. And guess who you are? So, that's not false information. And we have 40 years of incredible regeneration of tissue behind us, dear one, to show that. But you get these people to get out of balance because you know immediately she's having lymphatic problems at the level she is. What does she have wrong with her? Kidney and adrenals. Well, the adrenals is your emotional component. So this person goes like this. There's more to this person than I'm going to tell you because she's called in here quite a bit. It's like bipolar. One minute you're, oh my God, this is great. And the next minute, oh my God, it's killing me. You've got these sort of things, and I'm doing this to teach you practitioners that you're going to have cases like this, and there's just nothing, and don't take them personally. Because she's throwing out accusations here that are untrue, unwarranted, unconscious, and plain stupid. But she doesn't understand. And she didn't work through that. She didn't get, if she was eating the acid fruit and she saw that, get rid of that, go back down to vegetables. We all teach that. You also suggest that fermented food is dead food when in reality one of the purest forms of medicine is from our gut flora. What the hell are you talking about? That's insane. One of the purest forms of food is the God force itself, dear one. Spirit, the prana, the life force. The life force takes forms, and some of the highest forms physically of the life force is fruits, berries, those two, magnetically proven. So this is, you're way off balance here. Fermentation, all societies ferment their foods. You know, there's some tribes that ferment kava kava and have a good time. We like our beers, we like our wines, we like fermentation. But fermentation is a process of decay, dear one, not the process of wellness. And if you have to pre-digest your foods before you eat it any more than that, than eating raw, then I might say you have serious digestive problems. And you can say, well, then I can move to pre-digested food. But what you're ignoring is the fact that you've got to fix these problems, not keep moving yourself around, because right now you're toxifying your body, you're acidifying your body right back again. Oh, it'll hit you, let me tell you, because you're going back to the same diet most people are already eating right now. And if you think that's a healthy diet, look around. The human body cannot digest things like cabbage and other vegetables properly. Oh no? When I love cabbage raw, I eat it, chew it up, digest perfectly for me. What's your problem? You see what I'm saying? You've got to look at your body and what's going on with your body. You're blaming the foods when you need to blame your body. You need to look at your body more and see what's going up with that. Fermentation breaks down the cell walls to inhibit better digestion. Give me a break. That shows you have digestive enzyme problems. You have problems. Fruit diet is the simplest diet to digest, and when you can't digest fruit, what does that tell you? You're in trouble. And the suggestion that I see in this, guys, is hepatic or liver problems with her. But it would make sense because she's backed up all the way to the head. Her hair's falling out. Now, you can go on meats, which are stimulants, and you'll lose some of that at times. You'll see that, oh, look, I'm remineralizing my teeth as stimulants. And a good example is calcium. Of course, you have to be careful because if you bring too much calcium ash into the blood, you'll have the opposite effect. You'll have phosphorus pulling out of bone matrix. Because remember, phosphorus is an acid, but it's the little brother to calcium and magnesium. If you take too much calcium magnesium, you'll push out the little brother. Now, I know, I'll quit. I'll let you know when I'm done. Okay? So the calcium is the older sister. And that calcium, too much, is going to pull phosphorus out of bone matrix. That's bad in itself as well. So this homeostasis, this balance, this flux is important to happen, this ionization, oxidation. But the favor is on the base side. Remember that. If it's not, and this lady's going back to the favor on the acid side. So all this ash, even raw milk, these ashes are going to yield her some serious problems. A lot of mucus back in the body again, all the lymph system backed up again. And this is why this is very serious, but you're going to have clients like this, guys, that you can't help. You can't work with them. You'll have to let her go out and learn, because she'll be back, and maybe she'll be back with more balance and a deeper understanding of why she shouldn't do what she did. So it's just something to think about there. She says that she thinks I'm dangerous because your advice to people is dangerous. You insult me, dear one. There's only a few of us in the world has been able to heal and regenerate people at the level that we do. And now that our Facebook is full of these beautiful spiritual beings, we have healers all over the place. Look at Dimitri, and look at all the groups. Look at all the Facebook people. I'm so proud of you guys. You never take these people that like to insult people and take that to heart. This lady's suffering, and she doesn't know how to find remedy, and she's just grabbing onto things that she thinks make sense. But she's pulling herself back to the past. And man needs to go to the future. We want to go back and live in caves and grunt and eat dead meat and rip animals apart? Go ahead. But I submit to you that it's time that man elevate his awareness so he can get more to who he really is, so he can have more love and joy and pleasure on the planet. And yes, some of you are in serious health problems. You got to fix it. But the road to fix it isn't always fun. So what's dangerous is this lady. She's dangerous to herself because she's going back into the world which is breaking her down. So very serious for her, and she just doesn't realize that. Who's dangerous is these price people who tell people that you need to eat dead animal tissue and you need to go back to drinking raw milks. Oh, do you really? Well, after age 2, you lose the enzymes to digest milk. What's that? Ask these MDs and these PhDers, what's that? You ask me to drink a milk that I can't even digest. I mean, these are people that don't know anything about true health. That's all I can say. And no offense to them, but their words precede them. She also made reference to a lady that worked for us, Fran. Fran is an artist. She was been a friend of mine for a long time, and she was Gary Knowles' personal assistant for a number of years. Very nutritionally adept. She understands life. And you're making a claim that she said that you need to brush your teeth with fluorinated toothpaste and bleach my teeth to make it white after detox. I have to tell you, I've known Fran a long time, and she's rebuilt a lot of animals, and I've never in the day would ever think Fran would say something like this. I have to say that I think you're delusional. We have people we train, and we work with them, and they try their best. They're not fully knowledgeable. They don't have 40 years of understanding. I mean, few do. So you have to give some way to that sort of thing, but there's no way that Fran told you that, because I know Fran personally for a lot of years. And she's a chemical freak. So you're making statements here that have no basis. So I appreciate the letter, but I think you're way off base, sweetheart. And I think it's important for those of you that are practitioners to understand that you have people like this, and that it's going to happen. And it's okay. It's okay that she goes off and does her own thing. But don't let it take you from truth and honesty and integrity. I used to let things like this bother me years ago when people would say things negatively and things. And because they didn't understand detoxification, they didn't understand this variances of pH and how this and the electromagnetic energies affect every single process that's going on. And that it's so involved that we as a limited Homo sapien mind cannot understand this whole process. We like to think we can. The problem is a lot of that's hype too. So we're a society that's hyped ourselves up to be so much more intelligent than we actually are. Like the fact we can build a TV set this big though. But nutritionally, the allopathic community has suppressed man's growth and knowledge and health. The states have aligned with that and arrested people and jailed naturopaths for years. So if you want to blame somebody for our ignorance, go to the AMA and say, which is tied to the World Bank, and say, look, the World Bank has been at the core of man's problems, not his remedies. And so you have the World Health Organization, another problem. So you have ignorance that's just everywhere. And it shouldn't be, because just look at the effect that the allopath, a consciousness, has had on society. The death rate is astronomical. And last night I was talking about this strain of bacteria that is resistant to antibiotics. Of course, it's only those people that have been on extreme chemical medications that have this bacteria. So I want you to have a good day. I did this video to help you guys to understand that there's a lot of you becoming practitioners out there. Do it with love, do it with joy. You're going to have poor souls that are suffering, that can't find their remedy. But it's important to understand when you talk about demineralization and hair falling out, what's really behind that and the seriousness of this. And you're going to see some serious problems. And I'm touching on that calcium a minute. If I give you a lot of calcium, I can make your fingernails grow. Of course, I run the risk of pulling all the phosphorus out of the bones. I run the risk of creating calcium deposits, which is notorious for people that have on high calcium. They get calcifications all through the body. So I can force it to grow. And what happens when you stop taking calcium, or a lot of people were taking the Jello, gelatin to do that. Horse's hooves. Oh, I got great fingernails. Look, I've been on gelatin. What happens when you stop it? It goes back. Because you didn't fix the same problem. You're using stimulants and proteins. That's why you build muscles and big protein muscles. What happens when you go into a state of health? What happens when you withdraw from that high level? You lose them because they were inferior. So I want you to all have a great day and have fun. Don't let people like this bother you. And understand what's really going on with this poor soul. And she needs to understand what's going on with herself as well. Listen, we are all heavily lymphatic up. We have serious lymphatic problems. And we're seriously dehydrated. We have serious acidosis problems. And we have to fix them. And you guys are doing such a good job with that. But I want you to know, as practitioners, you have every level of person coming to you. Some are bipolar, some are schizophrenic, and we're trying to help them. Sometimes in some of these people, unfortunately, they're hard to keep focused. And it's just hard to help people like that. So you try your best. And you give love to all life. But use common sense. We want to be a superior race. We don't want to go back and follow the ways that we've been following, because look at our society from doing that. We're an aggressive, warring planet. We're sick as everybody's sick. And it's all from eating the meats and the milks and everything else, and you want to go back to that. It's amazing. It's amazing. Anyway. This is Golden Mangoes. Woohoo! Woohoo! I found some good golden mangoes. I love you guys. You have a great day. Don't let anything take you off of your consciousness. And give love and health to all people. May the blessings be.